welcome. Thank you very much for joining the fireside chat on digitalisation. So I'm from the Tata Steel team. My name's Emma McKay, and I'm part of our IT leadership team, where I head enterprise architecture. So I'm super excited to be joined here today by one of our strategic IT partners. So Laurence Janssens from Microsoft, welcome.
Thank you, Emma.
And in addition, from Tata Steel, we have Kees, who is our CIO.
Good afternoon.
So, to start with, some introductions. So, Laurence, could you tell us a little bit about your role at Microsoft and about what your strategic priorities are?
Sure, Emma. So I'm Laurence Janssens. I'm overseeing our commercial activities toward our manufacturing customers, mainly discrete and heavy asset customers. And if you ask me about my priorities today, when I think about how we serve our customers, certainly how can we help them unlock data? There has been a recent study by Gartner saying that by 2024, 50% of the heavy asset manufacturer will actually have failed to unlock and monetize the data they have available. So really, how can we help them scale? How can we help them really get to the business outcome that they're trying to drive? So that's certainly one topic we're looking at. The second one, and we heard it also in the introduction that we had just had with Emmanuel, is this extreme volatility that's present in the supply chain. So how can digitalization today really help bring transparency and visibility to what's going on quicker and allow manufacturers to be more agile? And thirdly, we all just have spent 18 months home, or most of us. And so, the way we collaborate has been transforming. And we'll talk about it with Kees a little later on during this chat. But certainly, we still see the transformation collaboration as being a very important priority for our customers.
Okay. So I think, Kees, we're going to talk a little bit about our digitalisation strategy within Tata Steel in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But to start with, you have been our CIO since 2015.
That's right.
But you've actually been within the company and within the steel industry for 25 years. I'm wondering if you can talk us a little bit through your career?
Maybe a little message there also. I'm only a rookie, 25 years in steel. That's how it works. But I've been everywhere. Yeah, that's true. Procurement, supply chain, operations, and then I became CIO, and I thought maybe career is over. But on the contrary, digital IT is on top of the agenda, and it's making its own business. And what is important, and that's my message also, that digital is an integrated thing about business and IT itself. And by that, coming from the business, it was relatively easy for me to set up those strategic roadmaps in digital together with my stakeholders, my colleagues, because these business processes, etc. And when you're purely IT focused, you might be on an island. So the integration of business and digital was the utmost important. On the other hand, I was there also because we outsourced our execution of digital and IT. And my main message is I did contract management in the past, but my main message is, if you really want to go innovation, you can't do it by yourself. You need your partners for that, and also the innovation around you. And that's actually what we're doing with our partners at the moment, of which Microsoft is one, of course.
So it was 2016, I think, that we put digitalisation front and centre of our company strategy.
That's right.
And since then, we've made loads of progress in that space. And I've heard you talk before about some of the conditions for success.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. It has been a bumpy road, as I heard that before. But now the commitment for success, and it may sound very logical, business actually is a top-down commitment. Is it really true? Is it in your strategy? And did you cover everything? Then it's the proper governance with your business. How do you manage that? Innovation budget. That's very clear. But the most important thing actually is the digital awareness of your company, of your staff. And that's actually quite a challenge in Tata Steel also. It's not directly that it has to do with age, but maybe a little bit. But the digital awareness to absorb the new technology, that's really a challenge we have at the moment, and we're working that by learning, training, etc. But again, that's one of the most most important things itself. Yeah.
Yeah. So Laurence, obviously in your role in Microsoft, you deal with lots of manufacturing companies like ours. Does that sound like a familiar journey that other customers of Microsoft go through?
So certainly, Emma, I think what Kees was talking about certainly resonates, right? So first, it starts with the top. I think that digitalization is not a side project that your organization does. It has to be at the core of the executive priorities. It also needs to have the right investment. Let's be super clear. And then it's just not about technology, right? It's about the processes, the people, and the change management that goes with it. Really focusing on the business outcome that you're trying to drive with digitalization, not the digitalization itself. And I think one aspect that's also very important is how do you bring people along? And I think Kees was commenting on that, right? Show the first successes, show also lower the barrier to access the technology, right? Bring really your subject matter experts into the journey with you. Don't just leave it as an IT topic.
Yeah. So that's on making the whole digitalization strategy work, but obviously my area is technology, and I'd like to talk about the technology a little bit. Kees, obviously over the last few years, we've had lots of success, and we really have focused on implementing lots of new things to benefit our internal processes and then ultimately our customers as well. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the key things that we have achieved over the last few years.
Sure. Still a lot to do, because we call that legacy. Some people say you should do it sequential. No, we do it parallel. So we have roadmaps for every domain in manufacturing, sales and marketing, and also other functions we're working on. But the main areas are sales and marketing and supply chain. So customers and manufacturing is about efficiency. If we give some examples, in sales and marketing, we're talking about the e-commerce, the Nexus systems, where we also have the pricing machine. We have future value chain, about demand, market demand. We come back in a minute because that has to do with data itself. EDI connections today, with invoicing and sharing data, is almost a license to operate with customers. You really have to do that. And in the supply chain, it's also only about transparency. Where is my steel when it's coming, tracking and tracing, and these kind of things. And that's we have implemented over the years. In manufacturing, it's more about IoT, sensoring, getting the data into place. But also roboting, of course. And also very interesting also for our customer is a smart coil, we call that, where the specifications are on the coil itself. And you can read it on the assets of the customer. They can read those specifications also and use that in their process. And sharing that with the customers, we come to that in a minute, is of the utmost importance. The outcome of this all is, of course, data. And our data analytics journey has started at the time. At the moment, we have also won the Lighthouse Prize from the World Economic Forum. But we're quite far with that. In the manufacturing area, to improve processes. And as I said, in sales and marketing, it's there to try to predict the market conditions and the requirements. And with data, we are looking at these kind of elements. So that's a little bit the journey. I can talk it for hours, but these are the most important areas. Yeah.
So that's obviously Tata Steel. And a big proportion of what Kees has talked about is in the data area. Really keen to hear about what other manufacturing companies are focusing on. What do you think the kind of the key trends are in the technology space within other industries like ours, Laurence?
So for sure, one that Kees might not have mentioned because it might not sound that.
It's everywhere. I know
it's everywhere, but we should put it on the table is obviously cybersecurity.
Sure. Absolutely.
Right, as digitalization is becoming so ambient, I think, really having a good cybersecurity agenda that also covers actually your OT environment is very important. Of course, Kees talked about analytics, and I think what is also interesting for your customers listening to us is to really think about, how the cloud paradigm is also democratizing the access to analytics capabilities, right? And both because you can bring cloud capabilities and analytics capabilities to the edge and really in your production environment, but you could also really think about those hybrid scenarios, right? So what do you do, in your premises? What do you do in the cloud? How do you optimize for basically the best architecture? So I think we'll see more and more of that, and we will see more of what we called edge computing becoming reality. And Kees alluded as well to also the transformation, frankly, of commerce and commercial activities, right? So I think buyers have taken different behaviors during COVID. They've some things that probably they weren't ready to do, they have embraced. And now when you look at recent research, it shows that 70-80% of buyers actually want to order or reorder online, right? They don't want a human interaction for that kind of a transaction. So I think we'll see more of that blend of how do customers choose to interact with us, and then we can talk about what are the front ends that we can put available to them, but also on the back end, right? How can you be smarter at really building 360 customer insights and also having that dimension of real-time analytics being available to your sales force? We talked a little bit about pricing optimization, but it's also a super good example, right? Analytics is just fantastic when you think about price optimization scenarios. So I think we'll see also more of that coming.
Okay. So I go back to the data topic again, which is a real hot topic. And for us within Tata Steel, over the last 5 years, we've really focused on developing our expertise in advanced analytics, particularly within the manufacturing space and in the supply chain space. And that's really allowed us to make use of data to optimize our processes internally, and make ourselves more efficient and ultimately more sustainable. But more and more, we're starting to think, aren't we, Kees, about how we actually share data with customers. And we're an active member now of the International Data Space Association. And we've got a pilot running currently, I think, with one of our...
It's Bram.
Yeah, Bram. So MCB, customers in the audience. And that's Smart Connected Supplier Network. And this, I think we see to be a real area that we should be focused on more.
Absolutely. No, yeah, that's sharing data with our customers. We do a lot with our customers together. We have R&D programs, we share this data, etc. And we did that in the traditional way. But in the future, it will not be bespoke EDI connections anymore. It will be an area where you share that data, where a certain customer you can share that, and you can have a SharePoint, and everybody can put his data there and compare that and work on it together. And that will be absolutely the future. It's not directly happening at the moment, but I think that's certainly important. That have those kind of SharePoints, which is a pilot now. That's going on and should progress further. And I see that really happening. Cloud-based, maybe Azure, but to work on that. That's really something we really promote. So let's see how this pilot also goes. But
So is this something also that you see at Microsoft, industrial data sharing?
Yes, for sure. So and I would categorize a little bit three types of scenarios. So you can share the data in the context of a workflow, and a connected supply chain is a very good example that you were just giving. What we see as well is also basically the asset becoming really connected in the mills, right? And machine builders really looking at first offering digital services when it comes to the visibility of the performance of the asset, but then, going beyond, how can you build predictive capabilities on the base of that? And ultimately, how can you basically look at, a servitization model of basically guaranteeing just the availability of the asset, right? So it can also lead to a change of the business model and really look at what's the portfolio of digital services that you can build on top of your assets. And I would say thirdly, and Kees alluded to it, you have the dimension really of the ecosystem, right? And especially when it comes to looking at innovation and how do you co-create. I think we will see a lot of very innovative platform approach in the future. And just to illustrate that, I will give one example. Recently, we announced a partnership with Bosch in the area of software-defined vehicle. And basically, it's Microsoft bringing the Azure cloud platform, Bosch bringing, their software modules, and really building a platform that allows, automotive industry to go much quicker and be much more efficient as how, the software-defined vehicle and the control units on the vehicle are provided with updates and etc. So it's really, co-innovation and data sharing at the level really of software development.
Maybe to add to that, we also, with for customers, we would like to build the digital twins. So that that the customer can work also with our premises, and also simulations with artificial intelligence, and that we could do also together with customers and suppliers, and that's also a trend which is really starting at the moment.
Yeah, it's such an interesting area, and there's so much still to do with our customers in this area.
It's always the question, what's the direct return?
Yeah,
and that's sometimes a blocker itself. But we have to continue that route, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think the key is that we look to take waste out of the system and out of the supply chain between us and our customers. Yeah. So moving away from digital, actually to the kind of one of the key topics of today's sustainability. So obviously we've just heard from Paul Pullman, and I know that Microsoft have set out many years ago now some really ambitious goals in terms of sustainability, and great progress has been made. Could you share a little bit of the Microsoft journey with us all?
Yeah, and for us, net positive of Paul really resonates very well with the ambition that we have set. And just to remind the audience, Microsoft ambition is basically, and I would say among other ambition, but certainly to become carbon negative by 2030, and then remove all emission by 2050. And we published in January 2021 our first sustainability report, really, very transparently sharing with, our customers where we were on that journey. And I think there are a couple of points that are really of interest to this manufacturing audience. The first one is obviously we looked at our own supply chain when it comes, to building out our data centers, but also, the device that we provide, and really now building circularity into those supply chains, bringing also traceability and transparency into them. Second, obviously, our data centers are energy hungry. Yeah. So, there's been a lot of work done on, looking at the energy mix, but also, frankly, co-innovating when it comes to the clean energy agenda with some of the energy players in the market. So we are part of the Northern Lights Alliance, to bring innovative solutions for carbon capture. We look as well as, also co-creating with some of our customers when they bring sustainability solution to the market. So an example is, for example, Ecolab that has, water treatment solution where basically, our Azure cloud is powering those solutions. But same thing for Danfoss that does refrigeration equipment, looking at how can they build more visibility into the energy consumption of their products on the market. So a whole range, I would say, of very interesting initiatives. But maybe the last one I'll mention is also what we do on our own Azure cloud. And I know Kees is going to look into it, which is our sustainability calculator. So as our customers are consuming our cloud, they can have a very clear idea of basically the Scope 3 emissions that get associated with that. Yeah, right. And that's going to be basically further productized in something that we call now the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability.
Okay.
And we are actually making some announcement around that next week with Brad Smith in a webinar that's called What's Next for Sustainability. But basically, it's going further down that journey in really giving access to digital technologies to allow basically customers that want to first, record and report their emission to be able to do that in a smooth way.
Right. So cleansing data is not only to have a mature business model, but also for the environment.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
A new definition of ET.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I'd like to talk now about the future of work and how you both see it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've all been through quite a journey over the last year and a half, if a little bit longer. And obviously, within IT, one of the things that we had to do was enable everybody to go from working in an office to working from home very, very rapidly. And we've seen massive changes since, and changes in behaviour. I'm keen to know from you, Laurence, how do you think that's going to develop over time? What do you think the future is going to be like?
Yeah, very good question. So I think we need to think about two types of workers when we think about the future of work. And I'll start with really, the frontline worker, right? The field technician, the plant operator. What we've seen, obviously, during COVID is that, remote technology got really adopted. So think about, technicians and engineers being constrained in the travel and the physical presence that they could have. So how could they keep collaborating and leveraging basically digital tools to still, keep the plant running, etc. So we've seen there, the introduction of artificial intelligence, of also remote collaboration tool at a scale that we hadn't seen before. And helping that is also the use of low-code platform, right? Because if every time you want to digitalize a workflow, you have to bring an army of developers, it's costly, but also, the capabilities are sometimes constrained. So I think having also at your fingertip tools that allow you to do that relatively simple is going to be really important. I think we'll see obviously also more automation in that area. And finally, I think talking back about analytics, I think there are a lot of really interesting analytics capabilities that you can bring into the shop floor environment, also for health and safety purposes, right? So think about anomaly detection, hazard in the work environments. I think we'll see more of that. If we look at then, more the information worker, right? I think the word there would be hybrid. And I would even say the hybrid paradox, because we've done, for example, within Microsoft, an employee survey, and what people say is they have the same preference, or they give the same reason actually for why they want to stay home or why they want to go back to the office, right? So I think there, the role of really the manager, the organization, of really being able to contextualize the preference of the worker and creating also, frankly, trust with, between the employee and the employer to make the best choice when it comes to the future of work is going to be super important. Second part, what we also work very hard on is when you look at our collaboration suite, how do we think inclusive? How do we think hybrid? And the reality, as we've all experienced the last weeks, and I'm sure for Kees it's the same, and for yourself, Emma, is nowadays, half of the people is in the meeting room and half of the people is still remote, right? And how do you manage that? How do you make sure the meeting is a good experience for everybody around the table, that became semi-virtual. So, think about the workspace and think about, just the collaboration tool itself. And I know, Kees, you and the team have been thinking very hard about...
That's right, yeah. Well, of course, it was when it started 1.5 years ago, you could imagine that in a week time, where 4,000 people had to work from home. That was quite a challenge in terms of network, and luckily we had Teams, and that's progressing also. But also has a huge impact on your IT environment, on your storage, etc. So, you have to develop that area too. We're going to Windows 10 now, because otherwise we get teams better working. But you're right, this hybrid will stay. We're going to introduce it's linked activity-based working, and probably 3.2. We're still developing that because formally people are not going back to work in our company, but it will come, and it will be a mix.
Yeah.
And what is important then also when you have that team, all those applications in place, that you also have you have to create, you said it before, to create an environment where people are not discriminated because they're viral on stream. They can really participate in the meeting. And there are already applications like Mural for brainstorming, it's Canvas for you have oversight for KPIs. So there are a lot of tools already also in the market where you virtual can really participate in meetings itself, and that will mature. So I don't think we were going back to a situation, not everywhere of course, but that we all work 100% from work. And on the manufacturing area, I agree with you that automation and robotic, etc., will go on, and did get a push in the last few months. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it just gives us an opportunity to move forward and create something better.
Exactly.
I do like your explanation of the hybrid paradox, because that's definitely what we're experiencing with people starting to come back. So
and I think there's one element as well in the future of those collaboration tools is also the possibility to really leverage them for knowledge sharing, right? So I think, and especially in manufacturing where the age force, the age of the workforce, you know that you'll have a natural outflow. How do you make sure that that knowledge gets captured and can be shared, and that we can work smartly about the insights, right? So I think in that sense, we think now about those collaboration really in a broad sense also of how can they be used as really learning tool and also have learning capabilities and analytics into those tools.
So I think the final topic that I just wanted to touch on to hear your thoughts on, Laurence, was on diversity. So in the world of tech, there's all sorts of stereotypes, male, young, nerdy, and obviously in Tata Steel, Kees knows, our demographic is
North Holland.
But you're obviously a big champion in the area of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. I'm just keen to tell us a little bit about Microsoft and your own personal experiences.
Sure. So I think we have had a very, very intentional journey around diversity at Microsoft. And I should say it's diversity and it's inclusiveness, right? So I think the agenda has become really broad, and we're working on several fronts, right? So I think, how do we get an inflow of diverse candidates? But then, when we think about promotion, when we think about, also managerial position, how do we make sure we keep a balance, right? So I think there's been a lot of efforts done. And, it was a pleasure to see that, leadership teams are actually very diverse in Europe, in Microsoft. So I think we've done extremely well. But it's hard work, right? Yeah. It's really hard work. You have to be intentional. I think there's also more and more role model coming that are diverse, and I think that's also helping. So, how do you make sure that those role models are also visible in your organization to inspire others and mentor others? But obviously, there's still a way to go, right? But I think Kees is on a really good journey himself.
Am I? No, my management team in IT is 50% female male. So that's I'm doing quite well if you look at the benchmark itself. But it's absolutely true. The rest of the organization, IT and technical, anyhow, it also starts with education. And there's also an economic reason for it, because we need that labor force into technical and in IT. Yeah. Especially in data analytics to grow, so that is really a target for us also as a company, including inclusion, of course. Yeah. And we're an international company, and with all kind of factors. So that's on top of the agenda too. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really sorry to say, but we're out of time, guys. Okay. It went by very, very quickly. But thank you so much, Kees.
No problem.
And thank you for joining us, Laurence.
Pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Kees.
Thank you, Laurence.